in the Mortgage College of Education. I met Paul in about 2018 when he and Kate Willink were working on the peer-to-peer conversation initiative. And today, the peer-to-peer conversation project would be what we call a quintessential 4D experience project. In the peer-to-peer conversations, faculty or staff or students have an opportunity to reflect on and ask what we call open and honest questions around the meaning of our work in the academy. The faculty member or the staff member or the student brings an important question to a small group of peers. These are questions such as, why do I keep getting burned out at work? Or what should my next book project be? Or who do I want to be as I move into retirement? Shortly after I had that first meeting to learn about the peer-to-peer conversations with Paul and Kate, I started getting more and more involved in the Office of Teaching and Learning, and in particular, another one of Paul's loves, which is the heart of higher ed. And he's been leading these conversations for the last 8 years, and this is another opportunity for reflection and deep connection around the difficult and challenging yet meaningful work that we do here. After I started getting involved in OTL, because it was such a space of joy and light, particularly at a time in my career when there were some challenges in my own department, I decided that I wanted to do one of those peer-to-peer conversations. So I did my peer-to-peer conversation with Paul and a small group, small faculty committee, and I had figured out what I really loved to do in my work at TU. I knew that I found the most meaning when I was able to bring all of my identities, so that as an artist and a researcher and a teacher and a mother, all into conversation. But I didn't really know where I wanted to go next, particularly as I was looking toward going up for full professor. And so that is the question that I brought to Paul and to my committee. And what happens in the peer-to-peer conversation is that they don't just sit there and give you advice on what you should do, but rather they ask you questions so that you yourself can find the answer. And when we had that conversation, I realized that whatever it was that I wanted to do next, it really needed to involve some sort of mentoring. And that conversation that spring was transformational. I indeed found some places to be a mentor. So it shaped the trajectory of the publications that I wrote alongside my advisees for the next several years. It led me to being the director of the Wellness Living and Learning community, where I could mentor first-year students trying to make their way to campus. I had the opportunity to serve as my department's director of departmental development to get to support other faculty like me who were struggling at times. So the fall, after all of these things started coming to me and I started finding my way and doing the mentoring work that I wanted to do, I was telling Paul, I was back in the OTL after a Heart of Higher Ed conversation meeting, and I was saying, oh my gosh, you'll never guess, like all of these things I'm getting to do now. I think that peer-to-peer conversation actually works. And without missing a beat, I remember we're sitting on chairs with wheels, and he pulled up a little bit closer to me and he said, well, you know what, I have a story to tell you. And he's given me permission to tell this story, and I really hope I get it right, and he can correct me if I don't. But he shared the story about how his dad had died a handful of years ago, and his dad's dying wish was to be able to make it from America all the way to Slovakia. And as you can maybe imagine just a little bit, the incredible task that is to get one's father from one place in the world to the other. And Paul said that, during this ginormous logistical challenge, he kept getting the smell of smoke. Some sort of paranormal smoke kept floating around him, and he wasn't quite sure what was going on. But he eventually came to the point that he thought, I really think my ancestors were trying to help me get my dad's body back to Slovakia. So he went to his shaman, Peter, to get some support. Okay, getting some support with getting his dad's physical body to where it wants to be, but also the spirit of his body. And Peter said to Paul, I'm going to help you with this, but you need to understand one thing. I'm going to open up this portal, and when I open up the portal, you're not going to just feel your dad there, but there are going to be all of these other spirits lined up. They're going to be able to sense you, and they're also going to want your support being able to get from one place to the other. So are you okay with being that person? And Paul says, yes, I'm ready for this. Let's do it. He didn't say it like that, but
pretty much did.
And so, Paul opens himself up. He's ready to be the door between this world and the next. Peter opens up the portal, and not only does Paul's dad pass through Paul, but all of the spirits of those others who are waiting as well. And so Paul gets to the end of this story, and of course I'm sitting there with my mouth hanging open, and he brings it back around to where we began and how I was sharing with him that I somehow magically had come to these positions of mentoring to fill my own spirit. And he tells me that, as mentors, we are like that portal, a neutral state. We're attentive to our students and to our colleagues' needs, simply and profoundly there for our students to pass through, to make it to where they're going. So it is my greatest joy and honor to introduce my mentor, a portal to pass through, to journey onto my life's most extraordinary work all those years ago, and today with my amazing 4D team. Please help me welcome Dr. Paul Michalec.